Good morning, colleagues. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are connected. We are very glad to stay here today with our fourth technical session about the Humanitarian Carbon Calculator organized by the Climate Action Accelerator. Today, we are going to start a third block, which is about methodology with these technical sessions. And without further ado, I'm going to move to the agenda quickly. Here we go. So this will be the session for today. We are starting with the intro. Then we will go about the decarbonization journey and how the data collection fits in. Then a step-by-step process with two practical tools that we are going to present you. They are available online, the Climate Action website. We are going to make reference. We will share the links with you. The presentation will be shared and the recording afterwards. After that, we will discuss about dealing with data gaps. It's normal when you start that you cannot collect all the data, or at least not at the beginning. This is a journey. What is important is to start and little by little fine-tuning. Then we will discuss a couple of common challenges. I will continue a little bit with the demo that we started last week with two tabs that we then present, which is about the data, how to upload a batch of data, and also quickly about what is the PBI, the Power BI, how to extract data. I will explain with a demo using the calculator, and then we will open a section for questions, answers, and also we will be very happy if you can also exchange your experiences around data collection, which might be the data sets that you have been identifying maybe difficult, and how you have been overcoming when doing the carbon accounting in your organization. So let me pass the floor to my colleague, Quentin. We are here, both of us, to present like in the last training session about the demo on the HCC. Quentin, let me pass the floor to you.
Thanks, Juan. Just for everyone to know, the technical session is recorded and will be available on replay. And for the Q&A, you can also drop your questions at any time, and we will do a proper session at the end, but we can also answer to some of them during the session. So yeah, don't hesitate to drop it whenever you have it. So just to a quick introduction to who we are, the accelerator, because I think that most of you already know us. But so we are a non-profit organization, and our mission is to support the humanitarian aid and the health sectors on the path to decarbonization, and we work around three main pillars: empower, champion, and then community. And since the beginning of this year, so as part of that broad mission, we have taken over the HCC tool, and that's part. So those technical sessions are part of this HCC tool community. We currently work with around 40 partners, both really some local organizations and some international ones, and that are all across the globe. So we have some really diverse opportunities with them, and yeah, we use them as a pilot, and we create a community to make them work together. Then you can go to the next slide.
Maybe just to highlight that based on the work with all those partners, this is practical, hands-on kind of experience that the accelerator is doing with the partners, and then creating all these tools and toolkits, two of them that we will be presenting today.
And so Juan, we will be presenting with me, is an independent consultant for the accelerator. He supports us in this maintenance and support of the HCC tool. He has nearly 20 years at the IFRC, and has led the climate and logistic initiative around across Geneva and the regional offices. So we are really happy to have him leading this maintenance of the HCC. And I'm a junior climate analytics officer at the Climate Action Accelerator. And so I'm mainly doing carbon footprints, life cycle analysis, and some modeling of solutions. And so we will both be presenting the different parts of the session.
Let me quickly make a quick recap on where we are. This is I'm presenting to you now in the screen the plan for the sessions on 2026 about the webinars. We have already done 3, as you can see. Today we are starting the technical sessions about methodology. So today we are in the 9th of July with these data collection challenges and tools on how to start doing data collection. You have the QR code in order to register and also to access the previous sessions that have been recorded. We will be sharing with you as well the presentation and the hyperlinks afterwards. Maybe let's start with a quick poll. Now that we are going to start talking about the data challenges, let's start, and it will be very interesting for us also to understand from the audience to get the temperature on which are the data collection challenges that you have been kind of facing within your carbon accounting journey. Some organizations you are starting, some you have been kind of doing carbon accounting for a while, some of you you have already even a roadmap in place. But still, I mean, this is, as we have been mentioning, a way to start and improve little by little. Could you use the poll that you see on your screen and rank the different options from the most challenging on the top to the least challenging at the bottom, and click on the submit. This again will be helping us also to understand how the HCC user community is finding the most challenges in order to produce additional kind of materials in the future or technical sessions if needed be specifically in some of the challenges. So basically in the screen you can drag and drop, or I think you can also use there are some arrows in order to classify once when you are happy ranking on the top the most challenging issues when you are doing data collection. Click on the button submit. Okay, so we can see the data gaps. I cannot see, Quentin, I don't know if it is displayed in the mail. I think you can see on the chat most probably the results of the poll. So on the top, for the time being, while some of you are still replying or submitting your poll data gaps with some categories completely unavailable, or simply the data does not exist is on the top. Later, the high complexity effort, the data exists, but it requires quite a lot of effort. Data quality issues is on the third position. You get the data, but you are aware that there is maybe some kind of inconsistencies on the data. Then we have the lack of clarity, not knowing exactly what to measure, which are the categories, and then missing tools, staff turnover, and implementing high-level responses. I'm going to leave it open, but looking at the time, we are going to start forward on the presentation. So thanks a lot for answering to this quick poll. Again, this really helps a lot to understand how the community is facing these challenges and where might be additional support to address. Quickly on a recap from the last session, where does this carbon footprint fit within an organization wants to design an organizational, or corporate decarbonization roadmap? Well, it sits here around the data collection that we were presenting last time, and exactly in the 4 key steps on how to do carbon accounting. In the last session, we were focusing on the bubble number 3, which is calculate the emissions. Yes, you have the data already and you input into the calculator. Now what we are going is one step before, is the difficulty on not necessarily using the Humanitarian carbon calculator as we were explaining in the last session, but it usually requires quite a lot of more effort, understanding on how to collect the data internally, how to prepare the data, collect, prepare, clean, and then input into the calculator. So today we will focus on this bubble number 2, which is about how to collect the data. And also reusing the last slide that we used in the last preview of the session for today, 3 critical steps. They are very important before starting to collect any data. Is first to define in your organization why your organization wants to measure the emissions. This will help answering some of the questions later on which data to collect, what is really important and interesting or not. Second important step to have in place is to have or to create a steering group or a board committee in your organization, defining who is the champion of this. Usually should be a senior official in your organization, a manager, a senior manager, and then who should be responsible, which are the different departments, and in order to put the different responsibilities across the different teams. It might be between the supply chain, might be at the administration, might be at the finance department, might be at the programs and operations, who should be helping in order to provide the data, compile the data, and clean the data, and at the end also to make the interpretation of the results. And the third step is to define the perimeter, what to measure, how to set these boundaries. Let me pass the floor now to Quentin in order to start with the step-by-step. Are we here alone? Do we need to start from scratch, or is there some guidance, Quentin, that can help us in order to start this process of collecting data in order to calculate emissions?
Thanks, Juan. So the rest of the presentation, you will see that I will often refer to 2 tools that we have developed within the accelerator and that can really be useful for you at some stage of the data collection. So the first one is a toolkit. It details the step-by-step process of carbon footprint calculation. And so there are several sections directly linked to the data topics. And the second tool, which is an Excel file, so we use it when we are doing footprints with the partners that we support, and it helps to start from the definition of the operational perimeter and to go all the way to track the data collection category by category to decide which data you collect, and to it helps you to go through from the very beginning, the perimeter definition, to the end. So both tools are freely available, and if you have questions about them, you feel free to ask either on the HCC Teams channel, so the whole community can benefit your question and the answer, or directly by email to the analytics contact email that you can see on the slide, and that is our contact address of the technical team of the accelerator. You can go to the next slide. So first, I just want to show you a bit like the different emission categories from the DLG protocol. Why? Because following them during the data collection is really useful. It ensures a full coverage, and that's by looking at that those categories that you will be doing your operational parameters that will be really the foundation of all your data collection. I won't describe each one of them in detail, but you will find in the toolkit the full description and examples for each one of them if you need. Just to give you a quick overlook, in green you have the upstreams emissions, so everything that happens before the organization. In orange, those are the direct emissions. So inside the scope of the organization, and in gray it's more like the downstream emission.
So Quentin, let me make a quick reflection. We don't need to start from scratch. The different categories, they are already kind of set up by the GAG protocol, which is the one that the Humanitarian calculator has been following, which is an international standard. So this already gives an initial snapshot of what should we be measuring if somebody's starting. These are the big categories, isn't it? And you will explain that ideally it will be in the ideal world to measure all of them, but the reality is that the data might not be available or is difficult to collect, or it will require quite a lot of effort. And then you are going to explain in the next slides, Houston, if we have this problem, we cannot have access to all this data. What do we do? Isn't it?
Yeah, that's the idea. Here are all the categories, and now I will explain to you how you deal with one category. What are the different questions you have to answer to be sure that you have been collecting the right data for this category. And basically, what we will present from now is what you need to follow as steps for each one of those categories.
Excellent. So just for everybody to remember, we will be now focusing on one of the boxes, which will be business travel, if I'm not wrong, to use it as an example with the specific tool as well that the Climate Action has been developing.
So once you have your operational perimeter, and once you look at the first category, so let's say we will take the example of business travel. You have three things you have to think of related to data. The first one is for this category, what is the data that I need to calculate emissions, and even further, what type of data do I need? Because saying I need data on the plane ticket, on the plane travels, doesn't mean exactly which data you need. So the data type helps to go a little bit further, saying, okay, I need the ticket, or I need the miles, or so, yeah. So that's the first question that you will have to ask yourself, and you will see that in the tool of the Excel operational parameter that I will show you just later, you have those information for each one of the category. Then once you have understand for one category what are the data needed and the data type, you have to think of which are the data that you can easily access within your organization. So usually it's some data that are already used for other, like for monitoring other part of the organization, some logistic data, some some administration data. Like there are already some data most of the times that are already used by the teams. So the idea is not to collect another new type of data, but to use, if possible, some that are already here. And then, so once you have this question answer for your organization, so this is really this is depending on your system, your information system inside your organization, then you can answer the third step, which is, okay, do I have the data? Blue, I have the data collected, or do I have a data gap for this category? So orange, and how should I go from this step? And if you can go to the next. Oh. And so this is just a capture of the Excel tool. And so for what you can see on the A column is that we have put like all the GHG categories inside. So the ones you have seen on the scheme before, the direct, the emission upstream, downstream. So as they are all listed in this. The first 4 columns is to when you do the perimeter, when you define it. So you select if you include it or not, and if you don't, you explain why. And so that's the first step. And then you will be able to only select the categories that you include in the scope and to look at the data needed and the data type. What we have done is to really put the description of the data needed and some examples. For example, here, boilers, generators, heaters for the direct combustion sources. And for each one of these data needed, we have rank some data type that you can collect. So that's the first thing you are looking at. Once you understand the data, this data, you are going to ask in your organization which are the data available or not, and then you are going to be able to say, okay, once on one hand I may have the data I need, and so how I go and use it, and for other categories you might have some data gaps, how I deal with them. So that's why, yeah, you can go to the next. So if we take the example of the business travel, what are the data needed? So for business travel, you have like basically 3 main categories: all the transport and flights, all the hotels, and all the local, the things that are going locally, like the meals and some local transport. So the first thing is to understand, okay, transport, I need to have information on my flights. What can I have? What are the different data types that can be useful for that? So it can be the route details with all the routing, the class, and the destination. It can be the total kilometer on miles, or it can even be only like the flight ticket, the financial data. And so you can see that even if we focus on one part of the business travel, you have already like 3 different type of data that you can collect. And so that's the thing you have to have in mind before going to the collection. And you will see that most of the time, for example, for the business travel, you will have the flight tickets, you will always have it available somewhere in the financial accounting, and even the total kilometer or the route details, depending on your agency travel, you will have access to some of this information. So first you look at the data type, then you ask yourself, can I have it? And if yes, how? And you ask so your admin or your travel team to gather it. And that's quite the same logic for the hotel and the local transfers, meaning for the hotel, you look at the data type. It can be the number of nights. It can also include the hotel class or not. It can include which in which country, because the emissions are quite different if you take a night in Switzerland with or in or I don't know, in another country, or you can only have the total cost of the hotels, and sometimes you even only have the cost of the travel, and you need to make some hypothesis to know what are the costs of the hotel in this total cost. And yeah, once you have the knowledge of what are the data that are available inside your organization, you can have this question, yeah, I have several data and I don't know which one I should use. And so as I show you, as you have been able to see in the operation table, we have rank by quality for each categories the data, and so that's what you need to follow. Meaning, if you have a 5-star data quality available and a 3-star, just don't hesitate. Go and look only at the 5-star one and try to use this one as much as possible. we almost always prefer physical data. The reason is that the emission factors and the emission factors physical one are really like more precise than the financial one that are more estimation. And also using physical data can help you to go quickly on to the action and the monitoring of the action. So it's also helpful at the end. It's helpful to have the most precise footprint possible, and it's helpful at the end to go into action. And it's always the goal of doing, at least one of the goal of doing the footprint is to implement some action afterwards. And you can, I mean, we advise you to keep the financial data if you also have some physical one. It can help you to consolidate to make sure that there isn't any big errors, and it can also help you when you are modeling in terms of carbon, and especially in terms of financial modeling the different solutions. And just to show you, so that's what you will find in the toolkit. So for each GHG category, so here it's business travel, and we have even split business travel into two, transport and hotel and local. And so you will find first a definition of what is included in this category, and then you will find the ranking of the data sources that you can use. So you can follow for each one of the around 20 categories. It's always the same structure that we have put in the toolkit to ease the comprehension, and so you can really follow, follow the toolkit when you ask, when you have one category and you want to know how to deal with, you just go in this toolkit and you will have all the information available.
So this is a concrete example, Quentin, from this category, for example, the business travel. In this case, well, the transportation, which is even a subcategory. This is the screenshot from the toolkit, carbon footprint toolkit, the Climate Action Accelerator developed and has been published. It's available in the hyperlink we have also left in the chat. You can access it. And then from here, Quentin, what I understand is that if the organization decides to include the business travel into the perimeter, and they decide, okay, now we are going to start for the first time, this tool already helps you and saying, well, there are three options. Either you have the data usually from your travel agency, or if you have been compiling manually, but nowadays, if you have a travel agency, this is type of information they can share to you, which is kind of complete with the origin, destination, the layovers, for example, for the flights, the economy, if it was the travel class, or if it was economy or premium or something like this. Then the second option is, well, we don't have this data from the travel agency and we didn't manage it in Excel, but we know the expenditure on travel across the different offices. And the third option is, well, we are not able to pull this data from the accounting. Maybe we don't have a structure in order to quickly pull this kind of a specific type of expense, which is about business travel. And then Quentin, the organization has to decide, depending on the availability, how to start. And this also guides you on if you are starting with kind of no start, which is kind of in this screenshot at the bottom. Ideally, it helps you kind of how you could improve little by little and get more accuracy in your calculation of greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, you're right. And the idea is really not to say that when you are doing your first footprint, your baseline, you should have all the 5 stars data. I mean, I have never seen any footprint with all the 5 stars data. So it's just to show you if you have it available, it's perfect. And if you don't, it's just to show you how you can improve. And for example, it's a good idea to improve when doing a second footprint if one of these category was really important in the footprint, to try to have a better data quality. But yeah, it's just to give you an overview of what are the different data that you can use, and really not to say to you wait for having all the top data. No, that's not the point. And I will show you later how once you have the data, how you can use the toolkit to even go and calculate the emissions depending on what type of data you have.
Excellent. So as a quick recap, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The big emission categories, they have been already developed by the GHG protocol. It's already in the calculator as well. It's in the toolkit, and already in the carbon footprint toolkit in the Annex A. You have one by one, which is the data that you have been collecting, and already it tells you 3 or 4 different use cases from no data at all to kind of the 5-star. It already guides the different organizations on how you can evolve little by little and start measuring with a better degree of certainty. And Quentin, let me also check with you. This is also the same information that is included in this Excel perimeter table, isn't it? The perimeter table has been kind of copy-pasting this information, the 3 stars, in order to help the organizations or whoever is responsible to the data collection in order to understand, is this applicable to the organization or not? If not, why? To document it in there. And then stars also to guide you on this kind of data quality or uncertainty of the data that you are starting to collect, and start helping you to document all this.
Yeah, the only things that are not in the Excel, because we wanted to keep it simple and easy to use. So for example, the definition, they are not like as complete as in the toolkit, and you will see later that we have done some path to calculate the footprint based on each type of data, and all the complete path is not in the Excel. So both tools are really we aim to use them like together, and
they complement each other.
Yeah,
Excellent.
complement each other.
Perfect. So we see here the interlink between these two tools. The carbon footprinting toolkit is more kind of a PDF, well, it's actually a PDF document and a static document. And this has been translated into this perimeter table as an Excel file in order to help as a kind of a practical tool organization to start collecting and documenting the process across. Let me then move and catch up a little bit on what you have been mentioned before on the data quality, Quentin, about the financial versus the physical. So there are 2 types of emission factors. The ideal one, the 5 stars, we follow with the same analogy of is to have the activity data, and this could be the liters of fuel that your vehicles they have been refueling across the year. It would be this, as we have been mentioning on the travel, the kilometers type of mean of transportation, if it has been train or airplane or boat or by road with a bus or with a car. It could be the kilowatts of hours of energy that you might use in your building. So these are the physical data, activity data. The other option, which is not so accurate, is the monetary emission factors, which they have been also built, but as Quentin has been mentioning, they are more kind of generic. They are averages across sectors, and which is one of the problems we are going to come in a minute. The only thing is that the good thing of the spend based monetary emission factors is that usually in the organizations, through the finance and accounting, the spend data is available in the different organizations. So even if monetary emission factors, they are not ideal, is a perfect way to start with. And again, progressively moving as data is more available in the organization to activity data. But monetary emission factors, they can be used as an initial hotspot identification. As I mentioned, the idea is to gradually replace especially those top categories. If in your organization, for example, procurement might be one of the top categories, the idea would be, instead of using only the spend on the procurement of vehicles, for example, it would be very interesting if you compile how many vehicles, which specific vehicles, the units and the type of vehicles that your organization has been buying for the reporting year that you are going to calculate, as an example. And then if there is no other way, as we have been mentioning, it's better to start with the 0 star than not starting. From there to move little by little towards this 5 star. Let's put as an example with the vehicles. It could be that in the year one, you only have the expenditure in fuel, which is the average fuel price. So from your accounting, the organization has not been compiling, or maybe they have been compiling in a logbook, but they have not been kind of transferring into an Excel and any other IT system in order to consolidate the data about the use of the vehicle. So there is no maybe a fleet management vehicle tracking system. So let's say in the first year is only available for the organization the average of the expenditure in fuel. One way could be to get an average of the fuel price in a country for a year, and then using a monetary emission factor to already estimate the emissions for the year one. Let's say then that the organization already understand that monetary emission factors are not the ideal. So in the second year, the organization makes an effort, this fictitious example organization makes an effort and start compiling at least the kilometers that different vehicles they have been running across the different operations. Then the organizations could use the theoretical kind of fuel consumption that the automakers, depending on the model and the brand, usually when you purchase a vehicle, at least in the left lead that they sell to you in this marketing brochure, they tell you also the product specifications, and there is an average. It's not accurate, but again, at least based on the number of kilometers that the organization has been using the vehicles, is a closer approximation on how many liters might have been consumed. And let's say that in the third year, the organization knows that the 5-star kind of way of measuring emissions is to actually compile the refueling data, the actual liters of and the type of fuel, if it is kind of petrol, or if it is diesel, or if it is using a gas vehicles in some places, and more, I guess, the hybrid vehicles, then also to compile the kilowatts hours that have been kind of refueled. So this is just as an example that year by year, an organization can move from the 0 stars to the 5 stars model that Quentin has been presenting.
Thanks, Juan. So just to get a little back to, once you have the data, you know which data you are able to collect for year one. So in the example previously, it was the financial data. Perhaps it will be like another type of data, but you know which one you have access to, and you will be able to use. So at this moment, what you need to do is to understand how you, from this data, go to Juan, yeah. How we can go to the final footprint numbers, like the final emissions. And so what is the process, the calculation process that you need to follow? So this process, it's like really a step-by-step process described in the toolkit. I will show you just later how it looks like. And you have two things that you have to check. Is first the emission factors that are in the HCC, meaning that you have your data, just check if there is an emission factor that you can use for this data or not. And it also helps you to understand how you need to transform your data, because, for example, the emission factor for the flights are like in by kilometers, and you will have perhaps in your data, you will perhaps just have the airport from the departure and from the end. So yeah, it can help to look at the emission factor to understand where you should aim to go, because the emission factor is just the step before the emissions. And what we recommend also is to give a look at the raw data that you collected. Don't just like say, okay, the travel team send me the travel data. It's okay. I will calculate later on. I have it. Sometimes it's yeah, I mean, every time it's good to have a first look just to verify that the data they send to you actually like contains everything you need, and also that you understand and are able to use it, because sometimes like it contains everything and it's data they are used to work with, but you as an external might not be as familiar as them to use them. Yeah, and so you can go on, Juan, and I will use the example of the travel agency data just to make it clear. So no, yeah, you can go back. So let's say that the travel agency sends you a file, and so what do you do? So even before trying to calculate, you just check it and look, and you see that, for example, there is the travel CAS, there is the departure and arrival airports, and there is the routing with the layovers. So it's perfect. You have all the data that you need to calculate the kilometers. Sometimes there is directly the kilometers or the miles, and even sometimes there is directly the emissions in it. But so here is just an example of what you can find in a travel agency file. And what is important is just to understand what is in here, and also make sure that you are able to understand the format yeah, for example, for the airport, it's a code. Most of the time, it's an international code that you will have to go and to look at which airport is which code. And really, if you have any doubt in this first look, be sure to flag it straight away, because the data collection part is the longest and the more fundamental step of a footprint. And so if you are able to identify as soon as possible the problem, you will be able to like get back to the people that have sent you the file and get some answer quickly. Whereas if you wait for, like, let's say you have planned to calculate all the emissions during a certain month, if you wait for this month and you come back to the people later, they might like not answer you directly, and it might like you might have some like temporal problem to deal with, because you are not able to use the data that they first send to you. And if you can go to the next slide, Juan, just so you can see. So this is what comes just after the ranking and the stars level of the data type. So we have done for each one of the data type a path, a process that you can follow. And we start at the very beginning, meaning this case 3 is no data available. And we have like the process you can follow. And for each data type, we try to really like explain step by step what you can do and how you can manage to access the final emissions. And so this is like an example, and this kind of process is available in the toolkit for each data categories. So it's, I mean, sometimes it's really like clear. You collect the fuel data, let's say for the fleet. It's really clear how you are going to have the final emission. Sometimes it's more tricky, and so you can refer to the toolkit when needed. Yeah, and go on, Juan.
Thanks a lot, Quentin. Let's go for a second quick poll to make a little bit of a quick break on the presentation here, and also again to compile the temperature, not to measure the temperature, get an understanding on a feeling on which is the categories. We want to understand in this case which are the categories that are the hardest for your organization to measure. Either you are starting now, and maybe all of them you find it difficult, or you have already kind of doing 1 or 2 cycles of carbon accounting. So let me launch the second poll, and again, is a ranking poll. We would really appreciate if you can sort from the most difficult category. Sorry, to calculate or to collect the data in this case. To at the bottom the categories that they are the simplest in your organizations to collect and compile this data. You can share them and click on submit. Start to receive the responses. You can see also on the chat. For the time being, energy for the fuel of vehicles, travel. The second one now is changing slightly as we receive more responses. The purchase of capital goods now starts to jump into first positions. Energy is still kind of on the top. See here. Purchase of goods and services. Quentin, I think this is one of the critical ones for many organizations because it represents really a big percentage, especially on organizations that they implement humanitarian response at a big scale. We have 6 replies, so let me continue and we will be sharing the results together at the end of the fugitive emissions. So it's interesting that now it has been, after my responses, going into the top, based on my experience. The organizations I have been supporting, the fugitive emissions is one of the difficult ones. Okay, so let's continue with the presentations. Quentin, what happened about the data gaps? What happened? I mean, we have seen the different emissions based on the GAG protocol. You have been showing the 2 tools that they complement each other, that they are quite interlinked about each of the categories from the no star to the 5-star. What happened if for some of them, we get the 0 star? I mean, we don't have data for that category.
Yeah, so what happened is, like, first, when you have a data gap, that doesn't mean you have a big problem. It really depends on for which categories you have this gap, and how much a gap should worry you really depends on the emission category importance. And so what I will show you just next is a generic ranking to guide you. And it can be helpful. It's obviously helpful when you have a data gap. It can also be helpful when you have only financial data to know if you can keep this financial data for the next footprints, or if you want to go up to a more like physical and more precise data. So what is the ranking? The first category, like, not all the emission categories need the same data qualities. They don't need the same effort, and they don't have the same importance in the footprint and then in the decarbonization path of the organization. So the first category, the top priority, it's the emissions that will have the biggest impact on your footprint, and it's also the emissions that are linked to the top solutions. And so, what does it mean to have a category in this top priority list? It means that it's worth investing some effort to really have the highest possible category quality of data, and it means that, yeah, that's the one you should put the more efforts on. For example, the stationary combustion or the business travel are always like important categories with some important solutions. So it's you can put some time in collecting this data. It will be useful time. The second category is the emissions that are necessary for the footprint almost all the time, but that are less like a priority. For example, on the purchase services or the capital goods, it's important categories, but they are less at the top of the list of the solutions and of the emissions. So it's essential to have data. You cannot, like, except for some really weird case, but in a generic ranking, we can't really adapt for each category. So it's like generic, but in almost all of the cases that I've seen, those categories need to be in your footprint. But if you have financial data, or if you have only the 3-star data, it's already a good information for this category, and you will only have to say, like, okay, I really want to have better data next time if you discover that this is more than like this is the top emission. But for the first footprint, you can keep it at whichever the data you collected is, even if it's 1-2 stars, you can keep it there. And the third one is the good to have, meaning that it's not mandatory, it's really context dependent, so it's hard to say to you, like, you should have it or not, but it's like, yeah, if you have it, it's always better. Sometimes you won't be able to have it because it's really too complicated and it's not mandatory. So it's, yeah, it's some data gaps that you can have and say, okay, I have these data gaps. I may need to see how I can improve for next time, but it's not, doesn't really matter for this sprint. So it's, for example, the distributed products, when we say that is to try to calculate the emissions that are linked to the product that you are distributed when the products are used or at the end of life of the product. So it's really category emissions that are hard to calculate it because the data are not inside the organization, like it's depending on something going after the organization, so it can be hard. The leased assets, it's really depending, but yeah, sometimes you lease some assets, sometimes you lease assets from other, and even like in some cases, it's really important because it's how that you don't have any vehicles, you just lease them. So in those cases, you can't exclude. And what it's also important to say is, like, I say good to have and not mandatory. It doesn't mean that you don't have to explain when you exclude it, because it's just always the number one rule when you are doing a footprint is the transparency. For the other to understand your footprint, for you when you will do the footprint again to understand why you have been making this choice and do you want to change it. So even if a category is in the third level, you have to just explain, and it can be really quick. We don't have these assets. It's a justification, you know. And so, yeah, just this is the generic ranking. So this is the tabs that you can see in the actual version of the HCC. The prioritization level, sorry, will be updated a bit because, as you can see, that yes, there is like many categories in the level 1, and we want to change it a bit so that the level 1 just is really like the top priority, and so you can have, like, let's say 5-6 categories in this one, so you can really put your focus on it. So we are adapting a bit the level, and but you will find it, like, as you can see on the screen in the HCC, it's in the overview tab. If you go, yeah. So the 3 categories, like, if you have a data gaps, or if you have like financial data or only 2 stars data, how you can, like, how you should act depending on which category it is. So if it's a category 1, it's worth insisting, it's worth to ask something back, to try to improve, even if it's not for the first footprint or for this footprint, it can be for the next one. But it's really, yeah, it's really useful, especially in the implementation phase, when you try to monitor the solution that you are putting in place. It's really useful to have, like, the best data that you can. Then in the second category, it's necessary, but if you, yeah, the data that you have can be enough. Like, you don't have to put some effort, some additional efforts. And the third category, if you don't have any data, it's okay. If you want to include it, you can extrapolate. if you think that you don't need this category or you really don't have enough information on this category, you can also exclude you have to justify, but you can exclude it's like categories that have a minor impact or that are really complicated that we put in this category, and you will see there won't be many categories yeah, at this level. Can go to the next slide, Juan. Just directly linked to what I just say on the transparency, and also like linked to how you make your second footprint really easier while you are doing the operational perimeter, the data collection, the data first look at the data, then the process like to go to the emissions. It can be really useful to explain everything that you have done, even if it's just a list. You put for this category, you listed, okay, I asked to this member of this team, and I collected this data. I discovered that I just lack this information, and just to be, yeah, to do, yeah, that's something you can do while doing the calculation. That takes a bit of time, but that saves a lot of time for the second footprint, and even that helps you to explain to other when they ask something on the data on the final footprint. You can come back to this document and say, oh yeah, now I remember exactly why it's the result and how the results have been found, and I can. So yeah, that's something that we recommend you to do, and yeah, that's it. Can go to the next.
Looking at the time,
Yeah.
Quentin, it's almost the hour. We are going to go to the couple of common challenges. We will open the floor for questions, answers, and also for community members to share experiences. But I think we will adjust the initial kind of program, and we will leave for a later session the demo about the HCC on the data input. So then let's go for these two common challenges that we have been identified and that many partners have been asking, and also in the past in the HCC teams channel has been raised the question about the inflation. So we have been mentioning already before the difference between the activity-based emission factors and the monetary emission factors. So using monetary emission factors, if we cannot access the more actual data, is good enough to start with. The only thing is that we need to bear in mind that there are two problems behind. One is the currency conversion, sorry, because if monetary emission factors, for example, in the Humanitarian carbon calculator, most of them they are based on euros. Then most probably your currency in your organization might not be the euros, or you might be spending in many different countries that they don't use the euro. So the first challenge is to relate it to the conversion of the currency, and this has a lot of implications on the devaluation of a currency versus another one. The second one is about the inflation. Is that the emission factors, they are not published every year. So if you have the emission factor from 2 years ago, then you will have to also factor in the inflation that might have been happening in an economy. Otherwise, these monetary emission factors, they can bring kind of artificial, what we call artificial carbon footprint in inflation. So I think could be kind of artificially creating more emissions that actually have been happening. So the Climate Action Accelerator, they publish a technical note. You have the hyperlink there. I will quickly later try to put it in the chat as well. And as a summary of this technical note, the recommendation is first to convert the emission factor into the desired currency. Okay, so first the currency conversion using the exchange rate of the emission factor. So in the humanitarian carbon calculator, in the tab about the emission factors, you have the list of all the emission factors, you have the source of information, uncertainty, and so on, and you also have the date, the year when this emission factor was published. And then apply the market-based inflation, which is something that is already embedded into the HCC. So the HCC that is in the general tab at the beginning, you can include in the different years from 2018 up to the current year, the accumulate inflation between all these different periods. And then the calculations will be done automatically in the HCC. Then the second common challenge went on is about the unit of measures.
Just to go quickly, so sometimes you collect data in a physical unit or in a financial one, and you see that the emission factor is not in the same one. And so sometimes an exact conversion exists as for the financial. So you just use it and to convert and just note the ratio that you used somewhere, so you can use the same one the next time. And sometimes there is no exact conversion, meaning like the example that I took at the very beginning, the hotel cost. If you have only the hotel cost but not the nights, there is no like you can't say, okay, I know that 50 is equal to a night. It depends on many things. So the first thing you can do is to ask the person which is the closest to the data if they can give you an estimation, or you can do the estimation yourself and just document saying that, okay, I take 50 for one night in this country, and you will be able to have all these hypotheses like available somewhere, so you don't have to reach in your memory to say, okay, I don't remember this morning, this was the morning, I don't remember exactly what I don't know. No, you just document it so it's clear. And yeah, you can go to the next, and I'm just answering.
Let me then move quickly to the questions and answers, and we will do the recap.
Yeah, so I was answering to Loic's question, but I will do it out loud. So yeah, there is only one tab, not only one tab, but there is one major tab in the perimeter table. And the reason why is that we want the perimeter to be the same for every countries. So the first columns with the decisions, the inclusion or not, the exclusion or not. It's important to keep quite the same coverall for each one. So that's why there is only one tab, and also the data needed and the data ranking is the same, even if you don't collect the same data, like the general information is the same. And then after, for the columns that you will, in which you will put, like, let's say, the name of the people that you need to contact, or the type of data that you really collected. Yeah, it can be useful for some to, let's say, to create some other file or to add some columns, or like, yeah, I agree with you. It can be useful. For now, like this perimeter table, we have been using it, like, let's say, for 1 year almost. And yeah, I don't remember exactly. I think I didn't have exactly this type of problem, but and yeah, as for all the tool, like the Excel tool that you can find on the Accelerator site, it's always generic tool. And let's just say to you that we always use them, but we always need to do some adaptation, because a generic tool can almost never perfectly adapt to your organization. So yeah, you are right. It can be useful to change it a bit, to use to use it as a base, and just then to adapt it to your need. So yeah.
There was another question, Quentin, from Olog. It's about how often is updated the data at the World Bank inflation database, because usually it takes half a year at least to be updated. So in order to calculate the cumulative inflation, this is one of the challenges, that maybe the last year is not available if you want to do it for example, at the beginning of 2026, maybe the inflation of 2025.
Yeah, I mean, as for all the financial data, it's right. Like there is a consolidation time during which the World Bank just gather all the information for all the country, and so it's never available like in the 6 first months of the year. We don't really have like an option to, because like it's the more reliable source for the inflation, so that's the one we use when we don't have the inflation, like when we are doing modeling and we don't have the inflation for like the in 8 years, or when we don't have it for the last year. What we do currently is to use the inflation for the country or for the world from the last year that the data is available. And sometimes even if for the last year the consolidated data is not available, you can have access to some projection because the World Bank, I don't remember if it's the World Bank or not, but I will come back to you there by email, because I know that I have a website in mind. I just don't remember exactly the name, but you have the projection for the 5 next years. So it's not the real data, but it can be useful also.
Thanks, Quentin. I cannot see more questions in the chat, but let me offer the opportunity to the colleagues still in the call to make use of it. Quickly, just only because there was a question actually about how to join the Teams channel. So let me show in the screen the email address. I think even if you use the QR code, you can send a quick message. So just send us an email to the analytics contact email address, and we will be adding you happily to the Teams user support community. Also, remember that we recently, last month, we launched another support service. So is these individual support sessions. You have the QR code. I also left the link on the chat. So if you feel that the support that you can get through the Teams channel is not enough and you need something more tailor-made and individualized, please make use of the link, and you can have access to a technical expert and have a chat on which are the troubles that you might be facing, and to get guidance on how to continue. And then also the QR code is here for the next sessions. We will be making a break now during the summer period in the North Hemisphere. So the next session will be happening in September. It will be about the emission factor database update that we are working on at the Climate Action Accelerator, in order to make a full review of the emission factor database, including the humanitarian carbon calculator. Let me see if there is any other question on the chat. I don't see. Otherwise, maybe, I don't know if you want just to close with this, with the takeaways, Quentin, to close the session today.
Yeah, just to close with a quick take around, a quick overall view. So the first thing you have to do when you are looking to the data is to start with the perimeter table, so you are able to do category by category. The one that you include, you are able to see the data needed and the data type. Then for each one of these categories, to identify the data that are accessible in your organization. Then if you have some gaps, or if you have some not many stars data, to prioritize which one you need to put effort to have to access to a better level. But it's not like not all the categories are of the same importance, so you don't want to put the same effort for all the categories. And at the end, I know it can look like not the most useful thing when you are doing the calculation. And I personally really don't like to document like I like to act and to calculate, but I can tell you that it's really useful when someone is asking you something to really understand the footprint, or for when you are doing the second one, or even when you want to link a solution to something that you have calculated. it's really useful to have a document. It doesn't need to be like a really formal document because it's for you or for the people that you will work with. That's not a document that you will share externally, but it's really useful to have it. You can trust me on this. And so, lastly, thanks to everyone for coming to this session, and have a good summer break. And yeah, see you next time. So yeah, the next time it will be around emission factors. There is like many challenges around it, and we will present to you what we have done to upgrade the emission factor database in the HCC, and we will present to you like quite the same thing that we do today with the data, but on the emission factor, which is one of the other big topics around footprint. So
Thanks a lot, Quentin, for this quick preview of what will be coming after summertime. Thank you, colleagues, for joining the session today. Again, feel free to contact us through the Teams channel or individually by email, or feel free to use also the service of the individual support sessions. We will come back then after summertime. Let me wish you a great day ahead.
Bye.